I'm very excited to have Luca Ortona lead on WECAN today. Luca, you are family, first and foremost, but you're also an Italian-American student at Bocconi in Milan in Italy. You're also the co-director and founder of Agora International, an international publication featuring student voices discussing political issues from around the world, from Iraq to Colombia, from Canada to Latvia. You are passionate about international relations and global politics, driven by a commitment to fostering cross-cultural understanding and collaboration. Luca, I'm excited to have you. Talk to us about what matters most to you.
Well, first of all, Steffi, thank you so much for having me on the show. It is an honor to be here, really. You got the presentation right. That is who I am. I really, really like learning from opinions and voices which I don't know of, which I haven't already heard.
Yeah.
I must say this is what was one of the main reasons for which this publication Agora was founded, which was based on the fact that I think that the best way to learn is from other people and is from people around the world. And in fact, my greatest passion is traveling. I am just really is my favorite thing in the world. And I think one of the great things of traveling is that you learn directly from people.
Yeah.
And so this was, in fact, the question which we posed ourselves with Agora, which is how can you learn from a student who lives in, for example, Kyrgyzstan or in Canada? Well, unless you know that person from school or from a family friend, there is no channel to find a student voice there quickly. I mean, of course, if you spend an hour researching, you will find that person, but there is that thing doesn't exist yet, and so that is probably what I love the most, I must say, what I'm most passionate about.
So talk to us about Agora. What is it? What are you trying to put out into the world?
Well, Agora started not to be another publication which writes about the endless articles of Trump's tariffs or the million articles we've all read on the war in Iran right now. It started because we thought that the voices of students, and specifically students across the entire globe, not just students in North America or Europe, which tend to be over featured. Those students do not get enough the chance to speak out and to voice what are the most pressing issues for them in their countries, and can give an opinion on a matter which we may only read about from the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. But for example, when it comes to, let's take the war in Congo, the skirmishes in Congo and Rwanda, we only read of those from the New York Times, right? Why can't it be the student who is there and who knows about it and has their own perspective on it, whether or not they follow the mainstream opinion is something which we can learn about. But really getting a chance to hear from these people who we don't get to hear from as much. I've been helped by the fact that Bocconi is a very international community. So I've been able to harness many of these international profiles. In fact, that the editorial team is Australian, American, French, Italian, and at the moment that is it. But we are currently actually this summer going to be opening our team to hiring, because being linked only to Bocconi actually restricted us from a bureaucracy point of view. And so as this semester, we will be fully opening our horizons and really looking forward to even hire editors from abroad. So far, the only people who really come from around the world are our writers. But we'd also love to introduce that from an editing point of view. So maybe even have editors that are not linked in Milan with us.
Yeah. So talk to us about how that works. How do you get in touch with these student voices from around the world? How often do you publish? What's your sort of bigger vision to get to?
Well, that's a very good question, because that's one of the hardest parts about Agora, in the sense that at the moment, we don't have a fixed writing team. Our writers constantly cycle because we want to expand and hear as many student voices as possible. So we have a team called the Global Outreach Team, which is in charge of actually finding students from around the world. Of course, it's far easier to find students who are living in Europe and North America for obvious geographical reasons. But we tend to do a lot of cold texting on LinkedIn, so just randomly writing to students on LinkedIn. searching, for example, political sciences university, and then like Philippines. And that's actually allowed us to find many interesting profiles. We tend to also go through friends of friends. The problem is that these friends of friends, shore up after a while. It's not, we all don't have an infinite storage of these of these contacts. But this is actually, while it's worked to some extent, the one problem which we have is that we still have a large readership from Europe and North America, and this is obviously for geographical reasons. But we, this April or March, we kind of asked ourselves, what can we do to even extend our readership to Africa, South America, Asia? And so over the summer, we're working on establishing a different kind of approach, which is actually getting in loco. So having we call them bureau chiefs, regional bureau chiefs and country bureau chiefs, basically of people who will act as our ambassadors and who will have the chance to talk to other people in loco. Because what can I do from Milan except to talk to other people? I mean, we were able to have this exchange about what Agora is because we met in Europe. And these are exchanges which happen because we're European. The saying that, the world is so small and we live in a small world is also because we live in Europe. And so we happen to have, chance situations where we meet. But those chance situations where we get talking about these things can't happen unless I'm there. And the ultimate proof of this was when I was with my friends and we went to Georgia 2 months ago. And when we went to Georgia, we actually happened to attend manifestations against the current government there, and we started asking some questions to students in front of the parliament, and we posted these these interviews. And actually now the third country after Italy and North America and the United States is Georgia in terms of both our following on Instagram and our readership online. And that was just a testament to the fact that in being there and being in the country, we have a chance of exchanging ideas and projects in person, which will always beat online, right? The world of the tech and AI and the World Wide Web has allowed a lot of these opinions to exchange across the world, but being there in person is such an important thing. And so that is something which we have just started. So we currently have a regional bureau chief based out of Nairobi, who's this great guy called Bravin, and we're waiting on someone who might accept from us in Cairo, and we're extending this basis. We're specifically in regions which we don't have as much of a foothold in, such as Africa, such as South America, such as Asia, which we're still on the lookout for. So,
Luca, it's so impressive, and I love that you are going out into the world, exchanging ideas, having conversations, agreeing to disagreeing, facilitating collaborations, because that's really all stuff we need to see more of in this world. I wonder what would you like to see more of in the world?
well, that's a very difficult and open question. I mean, I would hope that at least younger people were more curious about what is going on politically in the world.
Yeah.
I think that there is less and less interest in politics, and this is shown by the voting percentages throughout Europe and North America. And I think that democracies cannot function if everyone doesn't vote. I think also it's a shame that people are not trying to be interested in affairs that are not only in their country. I think that it is fascinating how similar the world is on so many different accounts. If you look at different countries, I mean, the playbook of the populist right rising up in one country is so similar to so many other countries right now. And I think if you look at those cases, you understand why certain politicians come to power and why others don't. I think it also helps to contextualize, world problems. We think of the war in Gaza. I think looking at other cases in the world, how politics works, how long these conflicts have been going on is really crucial. So I would wish that young people and students would take more time to learn about political matters in their country and around the world and read more. I think that the reading is also declining across all age groups, but specifically my age group. And I think that's also a shame because I think that Instagram Reels will teach you something. I won't say that Instagram and TikTok do not teach anything. That's not true. I think you can learn a lot from it, and I get all my news from it. So I'm not one to talk, but I also spend that time. It's not doesn't have to be much, but reading 1 or 2 articles a day from the big news publications does, I think, do a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I can see, Luca, that you love the journalism bit, which maybe is news to you because you went into it. You have a long history in your family of people being in international relations, becoming diplomats, living all over the world, doing this crucial work. I wonder, is that news to you? What motivates you now?
Well, that it's very funny you say this because I've always had diplomacy or a career in diplomacy as my North Star. I've never thought anything but that. I've said that's going to be my job. I've my whole life set out in front of me, and just as any 20-year-old happens to live through, that is not the case. So now I'm having this stint in journalism, as you say, which is very interesting. And I think that you asked me what motivates me in either of these careers. And I think it's ironically the same exact thing, which is learning from different cultures around the world. And in the case of journalism, that was what I experienced in Georgia. I learned from young people in Georgia what it means to live the crisis of which democracy is going through in that moment. In the case of diplomacy, it's the same thing. It's just that the tone you have on the matter changes, but you're still learning just the same from new cultures and countries, and that is my core passion. I love it. I love hearing the different facets of life, what people tend to do, how people do it, and I think that is unique. Definitely what will condition my decision on careers that I don't know yet, and I'm just
No,
gonna
absolutely. We
I'm
don't
just
need to
gonna keep my
know.
options.
Yeah, it's lovely that you're expanding though.
Mm.
Luca, I'm wondering, you you're 20 years old, so obviously you're very young, and it's great to have younger people on WECAN because the degree of separation between you and a younger person listening is just less than when I have only people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s on WECAN. So it's always exciting to have young people. And what are the sort of who or what made you so excited about what you do now? To go to Bocconi, to be interested and passionate about politics and international relations and people and communication and collaboration internationally. Who or what can you attribute that to?
Well, starting as in this project was almost by chance. It wasn't really. I didn't wake up one morning and say, let me found this publication with other people. We started it with other friends of mine, simply I think also in large part because of the pressure and competition which the Bocconi environment has. And everyone is just doing things, and people have this motivation and passion to think of something new. And I mean that also I think comes slightly from my 5 years in the Silicon Valley. I think that definitely, and also my 4 years in Tel Aviv. I mean, I was much younger, but that passion to do things and to try and even to fail is in large part, I think, attributable to my American experience and culture identity. And so with other friends, we started this. Actually, it was supposed to be really a way for people in Bocconi to read, because we have many student publications in Bocconi, but students tend to lose track of how many there are. And so we wanted to create a publication which would bring together articles from all of Bocconi into one mechanism. And then we kept on expanding that to, maybe Italy, maybe Europe. And then we're like, well, at this point, let's just do the whole world. So it kind of happened by chance. We weren't planning on taking it this far. And now we have this incredible news that a publishing house reached out to us and are interested in printing us. And so my dream from the beginning has been to print. I actually am just in love with print editions, and for every Christmas I get The Economist in print. So that's my really, I just love it. And so I was on the lookout from the very beginning, and they reached out to us. And so it's a very exciting thing, because it means that there is interest and people do think it is a valid idea. And so hopefully by December or January probably, we will have our first proper edition, which coincides with the online version, which will be printed and distributed across Europe and hopefully eventually the world as well. And so yes, that's
Super
my answer.
exciting. Super exciting. So, what do you feel are your sort of main learnings after doing this now for a while?
I have learned a lot. I've learned above all to have to wear many different hats. If
Mm,
you found something, I don't think not anytime someone says nothing comes easy, you tend to always say yeah, I know, but then you actually do, and you're like yeah, they're right. Nothing does come easy. It has been almost too much work. I think it does require a lot of sacrifice, and I don't think I've ever believed in something as much as I have with this project. And I
mm,
think that's what allows me to almost be obsessed by it. I mean, my friend, I sometimes have to tell myself to not talk about it or to not think about it because it almost takes up too much of my life. I think that it's very important to have capable people with you. I've a
mm.
very hard time delegating responsibilities and jobs and duties, but it does help, and I can't do everything alone. And I tell myself I can, and then I end up, not being able to do things,
Yeah,
or losing maybe precious time which I could spend studying on actual university work or hanging out with friends. And so I think that I'm still in the process of doing this. I have not succeeded yet, but it's super important, I think, to have capable people
mm,
and let them do some work which they can do and are willing to do.
yeah,
And maybe it may not be exactly the way I want it to be, which is very frustrating even today. But I think that saying having a more Italian mentality from this point of view and saying, vabbè, you
yeah,
know, va
yeah,
tutto bene is important.
yeah, definitely. That's the way to grow, definitely. What are
Mm.
your main challenges? I mean, I'm sure time is a main challenge because you are actually a student at Bocconi, which is sort of a serious place to be a student at.
Yes, time is always is always time is money, right? As the famous saying goes. I That is probably one of the biggest concerns. I think also, I mean, it's a very international team. It's a very big team. So
Mm,
I'm finding myself in a position of management and responsibility
mm,
without ever having studied management, or communication. I mean, my learning of communication has simply been through what know that I would like to see on Instagram. So when I'm working with my head of media, who's my girlfriend, we always say, well, what would we like to receive as news? If we were to see this post or this reel, would we watch it? And so that is something difficult because I don't have any experience, formation, or background in this world, but I'm learning, and it's very interesting. And then I also think, management and making tough decisions. When I was in other projects, I sometimes tended to be the junior in something, and I always
mm.
wanted to be. Oh, I wanted to be. If only I could be the president and make the final decision the way I want it to be. But then it turns out that it's actually way more of a pain to have to make that final decision because you tend to be the person of last resort when things fail, and that can be very frustrating.
Yeah,
While I like to be leading things, I do like to be in a position of responsibility. It does sometimes make for tough decisions and moments when I'd rather be doing something else, but I can't because I've tied my hands. The saying in
yeah,
Italian goes, "Hai voluto la bici e allora pedala." You
yeah,
wanted the bike, and now you have to you
yeah.
have to cycle it.
Pedal
So
it. Yeah,
pedal
yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm wondering who inspires you, Luca? Who are the people you look up to and you get inspiration from?
I would definitely say my parents in a lot of
Mm,
this. I do think, my mom being a journalist and my dad being a diplomat, I think they embody exactly these kind of passions, which I have. Um, I I don't know. I do like to know that I can create something that people actually appreciate.
mm,
And I think that, I having had the moment to learn from my mom's writing, my mom's ability to meet people, and for my dad's ability to represent a country and represent that country in relation to other and function to others.
yeah,
Those are probably my two biggest
yeah, yeah, amazing.
inspirations.
We
Yes.
love when the parents get shout outs.
Yeah.
So, how can we help you, Luca? Is there a way listeners can help you?
Well, thank you. I always appreciate that question. My sole request is simply to spread the word. You know,
Mm,
if there is a student or a young person you're talking to at the table who sounds interested and has an interest in something related to politics, because Agora is not only a publication which features students who criticize governments. You know, that is not. I always say, we don't feature polarizing views simply to get clicks, because or else we almost lose credibility. We like to hear from students from around the world. So if you're at the dinner table and have a young person at the dinner table who sounds passionate or interested about something, tell them about Agora and tell them to follow us on
mm,
Instagram. I invite you to follow us on Instagram, simply because we need the followers, we need readers to know, I think, also that we're doing the right thing and we're going in the right direction.
yeah.
At the moment, we are totally free, so I won't be yet asking for money.
Mm,
But knowing that there are already people reading us or following our Instagram, so knowing our latest updates is very important, because it also gives I think validation to the hardworking team, and knowing that there are people that actually spend their time to read the work that they've done.
mm,
And it also incentivizes, I think, students to want to write for us, because if we're a publication with 2 readers a month, then no one wants to read us. If
yeah.
we're a publication with 1,000 readers a month, 2,000 readers a month, that's when things change.
Yeah.
So really just spreading the word. We are new, we are eager, we want to get out there. If there are any opportunities which you think a young international publication might like to partake in, we are there, and I am 100% available.
Amazing. Luca, so in your last publication, I wonder, was there something that surprised you or that you were just so proud of? Give us an example of what you've covered lately.
Well, yes. So our last edition was on women's rights
Hmm.
and on whether or not the glass ceiling will ever break. The infamous glass ceiling as a statistic, and that was a fascinating public feature, simply because I was actually contrary to it. Every 2 months we have a meeting as an executive editorial board, and we always decide on the feature. And I try not to be Stalinist and dictating what I want as the feature. And so I was outvoted 3-1, in the sense that they all wanted it to be on women's rights. I was thinking, well, I think there are more pressing matters to discuss right now. And that was exactly what they used to say. Well, no, you're wrong. It's exactly for this reason that we have to write about it, because then people are forced to think about it again. I think that's very true, true thing. And I'm happy that we went through it with it, and I'm happy that I was proven wrong. The articles that came out of it were, I mean, interesting. Again, these are you tend to learn things which you wouldn't yet normally read. The article there was one called something, I can't remember the exact title, but it was about a woman's hands, a man's name. That's the name of the article. I remembered it, and it was simply, it's a very, that in India, many workers tend to many of the workers tend to be women, but for bureaucratic legal reasons, it tends to be the man who puts the name on the actual work. So
Yeah.
the data which you get from India tends to be skewed towards a lot of male dominant areas. And that was something that's interesting, because I think when looking at data, and there's so much data nowadays, and there's so much missing, like poorly extrapolated data. So
Yes.
using data
Yeah.
and twisting it the way that people think.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, because I
So
think
true.
when it comes to the country of India, which is such a big country and which rarely does censuses on actually what's going on, I think one has to be careful, and that is an article which proves it. Another one, which was two editions ago, which I always like to cite because I think it's so different and from the world that we know today. There was this article from Kyrgyzstan, and the girl writing was saying, well, it talked about love, and I think love is such a cliche topic as a student publication. Oh my God, here we have a sap story on love, but it was very, very interesting, because only 20 years ago, combined marriage was still in a law. So whether or not a man and a woman married was chosen by the families, and it was only 20 years ago, which for us seems almost crazy now.
Yeah.
I'd say it's been 80 to 100 years ago since that was officially
Yeah.
entrenched in civil society. And she was saying how that the fact that it was so recent actually changes the way and still leads to a bit of awkwardness between couples and the way that they
Mm.
interact. And I always say that as an example to how Agora does not only have to be a critique towards the national country's government, right? Politics is everywhere. And that's what I was saying before. I think that politics is everywhere. So knowing about the mechanism of politics and society around us are so important because they do drive our day-to-day matters, and they do have an influence in what we do and how we do it. So I think learning from these interesting perspectives such as these which I just cited, I think are really 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 interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah. So talk to us about your plans and goals. Agora is thriving. What are other things?
Well, Agora hasn't even completed 1 year of since it was launched. It launched officially in October. We started preparing for its publication over the summer. So I guess from that point of view, it's been 1 year, but we've been live not even in a year. And I'm just really hoping that we can extend how our readership, have more followers. Not to be trivial, but followers is really how you start getting noticed, and people recurringly see what you print and publish. I'd like to know that we have effectively an important community of readers that is not in Europe and North America, because that defeats the point. And I hope I'm actually going to be going on an exchange semester to Korea as of February next year, which I'm very excited to do. And which I hope to actually, intertwine my Agora responsibilities with that. And actually, it's funny because the entire executive editorial board of Agora is also going on exchange, with people going to Singapore, Scotland, DC, Madrid, and Seoul. So I'm very excited for that, in Buenos Aires. I'm very excited for that because that means that it's going to be an official test, in the sense that the editorial team will not all be in Milan. There's going to be a lot of online communication, and we're going to be forced to actually be on the ground, right? Boots on the ground, as the military term goes. And I think that that'll be an important test, because it'll really force us to ask ourselves, can Agora actually transcend borders? Like, such as the experiment in Georgia, will that happen again? And I'm positive that it will, and I tend to be more optimistic than others. But I think that it will be an important test, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. I'm in my second year. I just finished it. I'm going to be going into my third year, and university in Italy is only 3 years. So then after that, I'm going to have to make a decision upon where to do my master's, which I intend to do, but I don't know where yet. So that will be maybe for another episode.
Yeah, amazing.
But yes, those are the plans.
Luca, and so what takeaways would you like our listeners to have from your story? If you had to sum it up, if you had to give a couple of messages that you really want listeners to remember.
This is another difficult question. I would say, I think just listen, and I'm saying this especially because I know that there's an older audience in this, as you told me, in this WECAN project, the fact that young people do have things to say. And I think that maybe reading about these things and I just read recently an Economist article, I think it was published 3 days ago, about how young people are doing poorly in school, and how and it's true, we tend to vote less. There is still a portion of the population which does care, and there are young people who do want to share an opinion that is political, and I think that they should be listened to and should not be discredited simply for being young, because I think that while they may not be completely accurate, or you may not completely agree with them, I think that they may give you another perspective on things, and that, I think, is what Agora seeks to do. And in fact, we are lucky because we cater to two different audiences. We cater to an audience which is also young and wants to read about what other young people are doing, and it caters to an older audience which might be curious to know what the younger population is saying. And so for that reason, I then invite you again to read our articles, because you will find yourself reading younger perspectives, which I think can offer you a more all around vision of the world and what young people have to say.
Luca, you know that I am inspired by you, and I always am. And I'm so grateful that you're here for WECAN, and you told your story and you told us about Agora. Give us quickly the handles. Where can people find Agora?
Yes, they can. Thank you. They can find us on agora.international for Instagram, and on the internet on www.agorainternational.it. IT, very proudly Italian. Hopefully it'll become a .com one of these days, but the domain was cheaper for the .it, so it will remain in the .it. And please, really, I am available always. So you can also email directly Agora in our Instagram and on the website, which is Agora international@gmail.com. Sorry, no, Agora publication@gmail.com. So you can also email us there, and I will personally respond to you. So yes.
Luca, thank you for telling your story and your insights, and I'm so excited to have you. I couldn't agree more. We need to bring young people and young leaders into decision-making tables all across the world. You matter, your opinions matter, and we need to hear more of them and give them more weight.
Thank you, Steffi. Thank you so much for your time and your generosity and your thoughtfulness as always. You are actually one of my inspirations as well for being how you communicate with people. I think it's extremely important. I think learning from other people is what we both do, and I think is something which I think hopefully the world appreciates of us. So thank you, Steffi.